Our village thrives on sugarcane farming. Every year, when the harvest season comes, the villagers help each other out. Our neighbor, Aunt Zhang, eager to force me to marry her simple-minded son, deliberately fell in our sugarcane field and suffered a miscarriage. She used this as an excuse to frame our family, not only demanding I marry her son, but also insisting on 200,000 yuan in compensation and lifelong support for her entire family. My mother immediately refused and called the police. Afterward, our family moved to the city, and our lives steadily improved. Aunt Zhang, consumed by hatred, pushed her simple-minded son to take a knife and murder our entire family. Waking up again, I found myself back on the exact day our family was going to harvest sugarcane. Oh, it was just dawn. My father was sharpening his sickle in the yard. My mother was busy in the kitchen, white smoke curling gently from the rooftop. It was a scene full of hope and peace. After using the restroom, I didn't go back to sleep. Instead, I pulled my parents into their room and gravely told them we shouldn't cut sugarcane today. My parents asked in unison, "Why?" I told them that Grandpa had just visited me in a dream, warning that if we cut sugarcane today, it would ruin my love life, leaving me unmarried and alone for the rest of my days. My parents grew worried. During his lifetime, Grandpa was a fortune teller, so they trusted his words and feared I wouldn't marry. But the sugarcane harvest schedule was determined by lots drawn by the village. Today was our turn, and if we didn't cut, we'd be put at the very end of the queue, which carried more risks the later it got. Moreover, we had already arranged with the workers for today, so canceling abruptly wouldn't be good. My parents quickly told the villagers that I had suddenly fallen ill and needed to go to the city for a checkup. They hurried to pack, and our family quickly departed. I took Dad's phone, joined the Cow Dean Village sugarcane cutting chat group, explained our situation clearly, and sent the day's wages to the worker group as compensation for the disruption. With everything handled, the three of us embarked on our journey. Being reborn, I deeply understood that a happy, peaceful family was more precious than anything. In my previous life, on this very day, it was our turn to harvest sugarcane. After a year of hard work, we were finally being rewarded. My parents were so happy they couldn't stop smiling. They had already planned to use the money from the sugarcane sale to help me make a down payment on a house in the city. My mother said that if a daughter had her own home, she wouldn't be easily bullied. Little did we know that a few hours later, Aunt Zhang, who was helping our family cut sugarcane, suddenly fell in the field. She bled profusely, repeatedly screaming, "My child, my child!" Everyone rushed her to the county hospital, only then realizing she was pregnant. She was 46 and her pregnancy was already high risk. The fetus was unstable to begin with. The fall caused her to miscarry and she lost her baby. Aunt Zhang, despite her weakened state, lay on the ground, wailing. She cried, "Your family killed my daughter. I was going to have a daughter to take care of my son later, but now your family has ruined everything." She demanded I marry her son and care for him for life, and also demanded our family compensate her with 200,000 yuan and cover all her family's living expenses. Her son was intellectually disabled, always vacant and foolish. How could my parents possibly accept such an unreasonable demand? They firmly refused. Aunt Zhang went insane, rolling on the ground, and declared that if I didn't marry her son and if they didn't pay, she would risk her life to harm our family. My mother immediately called the police. Disputes between neighbors were difficult to resolve. The police suggested reconciliation. My parents agreed to pay Aunt Zhang's medical expenses and compensate her for lost wages, but her family refused, stubbornly insisting that I marry their son. Aunt Zhang shamelessly pestered our family for a long time. My parents couldn't bear it anymore and decided to leave our hometown, moving to the city to live. Our entire family worked together and life steadily improved. When Aunt Zhang found out, she was furious, her face twisted in rage. She instigated her simple-minded son to break into our house with a knife, killing all three of us. The pain of being stabbed, blow by blow, seemed to linger still. I clenched my teeth, the metallic taste of blood spreading in my mouth. In my previous life, I was a coward who only knew how to hide behind my parents. In this life, I vowed to make Aunt Zhang's family pay in blood. It wasn't until my father drove out of town that I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I checked the security camera footage from our front gate. I saw Uncle Zhang and Aunt Zhang leading several villagers gathered outside our house. Uncle Zhang pounded on the door, shouting, Liam Lee, come out now. I know you're in there. If you don't come out, I'll break the door down. Why aren't you harvesting sugarcane today? I've sharpened my sickle and now you say you're not harvesting? I don't care. You must cut sugarcane today or I'll burn your entire field to the ground. Uncle Zhang's voice was loud, but I noticed Aunt Zhang leaning against the wall, constantly rubbing her stomach, looking very uncomfortable. When our family still didn't open the door, Uncle Zhang raised his foot, intending to kick it down. Kai Rui Li, a villager, yawned and said, "Come on, Uncle Zhang, didn't Mr. Li say his daughter was sick? She had to go to the city for treatment. If their family doesn't cut, it's the next family's turn. Why make such a big deal?" Others also chimed in, exactly, it's all about helping each other. Whose family doesn't cut cane?" But Uncle Zhang disagreed, scolding, "What's more important than cutting sugar cane for those loose girls? If she's sick, a few pills are enough." "Why go to the city? I think Liam Lee is making fun of us, deliberately wasting our time." Someone spoke up. "Uncle Zhang, that's going too far." Uncle Zhang ignored everyone's advice, pulled out his phone, and dialed a few numbers. Just a few seconds later, my father's phone rang. It was Uncle Zhang. I pressed answer and put it on speaker. Uncle Zhang cursed loudly over the phone, finally ordering my father to immediately turn back and cut sugar cane. Seeing my father so angry his hands trembled on the steering wheel, I quickly spoke into the phone. "Uncle Zhang, we're at the hospital now. My dad is queuing for a doctor's appointment. Our family isn't cutting sugarcane today. Goodbye." With that, I hung up and turned off the phone. My mother murmured, "Why is that old Zhang so insistent on our family cutting sugarcane? Wouldn't the next family do just as well?" I gave a cold laugh. He wanted to find a wife for his simple-minded son. Seeing Aunt Zhang earlier, she would miscarry soon. This time, I wanted to see what excuse they would come up with. Through the camera, I saw Uncle Zhang angrily throw his phone to the ground, gritting his teeth and muttering, "If we don't cut sugarcane today, how will I get a wife for my son?" The people around were bewildered by Uncle Zhang's unprovoked anger and started to whisper. Although our family not cutting sugarcane affected the schedule, we had given advance notice and paid the workers, so no one's work was delayed. Cutting sugarcane in the village was mutual aid. Today you help me, tomorrow I help you. It couldn't be said that anyone was more disadvantaged than another. So why was Uncle Zhang so insistent that our family cut sugarcane today? Someone joked. Could it be that the Li family's sugarcane field has gold, that he's so persistent? Uncle Zhang snorted disdainfully. "I don't like him. Liam Lee dared to stop my son from getting married. That fool getting married? Ha! Everyone just thought Uncle Zhang was crazy because he wanted to find a daughter-in-law for his son, and no one was free to go crazy with him." Aunt Snow, whose turn it was after us, immediately called everyone to her house to cut sugarcane. Everyone agreed and immediately got to work, leaving only Uncle Zhang standing there, his face as black as charcoal. Aunt Snow saw this and called out, "Uncle Zhang, come to my field and cut some sugarcane." Unexpectedly, Uncle Zhang spat and cursed, "No way, your daughter is ugly and fat, she's not worthy of my son." Aunt Snow, hearing Uncle Zhang insult her daughter, flew into a rage. "Oh, really? You dare to criticize my daughter? Why don't you look in a mirror at your son? Drooling like a waterfall, it's disgusting. A fool wanting to get married? Are you dreaming in broad daylight?" Exactly. Aunt Snow's scolding was spot on. A fierce quarrel was about to erupt when Aunt Zhang, who had been forgotten until now, finally spoke up. "Brother Zhang, I can't take it anymore." With that, she fainted. In the busiest restaurant in the city, my mother and I were dipping beef for hot pot. My father walked in after finishing a phone call. His face was grim. Grandpa really appeared. He warned Chloe in a dream not to cut sugarcane today, or something terrible would have happened. Dad recounted that after Aunt Zhang fainted in front of our house, everyone took her to the hospital. It turned out she was pregnant. That fall caused her to miscarry immediately. The doctor said that if she hadn't been brought in time, her life might have been in danger. My mother, still shaken, said, "Those old Zhangs are too malicious. No wonder they insisted we come back to cut sugarcane. They clearly wanted her to miscarry in our field to frame us." I silently ate my beef, a sigh of relief in my heart. Avoiding Aunt Zhang's miscarriage trap was just the beginning. There were still many scores to settle. In my previous life, after Uncle and Aunt Zhang planned to use the miscarriage to harm our family and force me to marry their son, Timothy Zhang, they started implanting in his mind that I was his wife. So, Timothy always thought I was his wife. Whenever he saw me in the village, he'd chase after me, constantly calling me wife. Although I hated and feared him, there was nothing I could do. When my mother found out, she went to talk to Aunt Zhang. Aunt Zhang just grinned and said it was good for the two of us to interact early to nurture our feelings. My mother was uncontrollably angry and told me to visit the village less to avoid Timothy's harassment. Looking back now, even though Timothy was simple-minded, under his parents' prolonged guidance, he knew and believed I was his wife. Aunt Zhang had miscarried and would surely be hospitalized for a few days. Uncle Zhang would be at the hospital taking care of her, leaving Timothy alone in the village. A plan began to form in my mind. I thought that because the incident didn't happen in our field, they couldn't blame our family, but I underestimated their shamelessness. Aunt Zhang was still in the hospital. Uncle Zhang already led the village chief to our house, demanding an explanation. Mei Huan miscarried in front of your house? Your family must take responsibility. We're not greedy. A compensation of 200,000 yuan will settle the matter. My father was so furious he burst out laughing. 200,000 yuan. Are you dreaming in broad daylight, Zhang? We weren't even home then. We didn't touch a single hair on Mei Huan's head, and you open your mouth demanding 200,000 yuan. If this isn't robbery, what is it? My mother was also enraged. Why are you blaming everything on our family? Do you think we're easy to bully? After saying that, she turned to look at the village chief, asking him to mediate. The village chief puffed on his cigarette, saying nothing, implicitly supporting Uncle Zhang. With someone backing him, Uncle Zhang became even more aggressive. Demanding only 200,000 yuan is showing you respect. Not forcing Chloe to be our daughter-in-law is already very kind. Mei Huan was carrying a daughter who would have taken care of Timmy later. Now everything is ruined by your family. Liam Lee, you'd better be sensible. Hand over the money quickly, or it won't just be 200,000 yuan. I want Chloe to marry my son, plus a betrothal gift of 200,000 yuan. My parents had never encountered anyone so brazen, they were too angry to speak. More infuriating was the village chief siding with Uncle Zhang. Liam, you know Timothy's situation. He can't take care of himself. If no one looks after him later, he might not even be able to eat. Zhang and his wife are nearly 50. Pregnancy isn't easy. You should sympathize with their pain of losing a child. 200,000 yuan is just a year's income from your sugarcane field. Give it to them this year, and next year it'll be yours again. My parents grew even angrier upon hearing this and stood up to argue with the village chief. But he and Uncle Zhang were on the same side. My parents were honest people and couldn't win the argument. I stepped forward to face the village chief. This entire Caodine village is under your management, chief. The area in front of my house is also within your jurisdiction. If Aunt Zhang miscarried there, then you also bear some responsibility. Why aren't you made to pay 200,000 yuan? The village chief roared. Chloe Lee, what nonsense are you spouting? Do children have the right to interrupt adults when they're talking? I wasn't home that day. What does it have to do with me? I took another step forward, completely fearless. Our family wasn't home that day either. What does it have to do with us? By what right do you demand our family pay 200,000 yuan? Uncle Zhang didn't expect me to dare to talk back. He glared furiously, as if he wanted to devour me whole. Stop beating around the bush. Hand over the money quickly, or we'll hold the wedding right here. I was not intimidated. I opened my phone and played the security camera footage from this morning, exposing Uncle Zhang's family's despicable scheme to frame us. That morning, when Uncle Zhang led people to our house to cause trouble, Aunt Zhang was already close to miscarrying. The doctor also said she was an elderly pregnant woman, the fetus was poorly developed, and she had been advised to terminate the pregnancy earlier, yet they deliberately waited until today. Wasn't it just to blame our family? You damn dog. Uncle Zhang lunged at me, but my father stopped him. You dare to touch my daughter? Just try it. I signaled to my father that I was fine, then played the video recorded at the hospital. The video clearly showed the doctor advising Aunt Zhang to terminate her pregnancy a long time ago. That day, after Aunt Zhang fainted, Aunt Snow also went to the hospital. I proactively contacted Aunt Snow, asked for their exact location, then hired a handyman to help. He recorded the entire situation there. The handyman was very dedicated and unintentionally captured crucial evidence. Faced with clear evidence, Uncle Zhang couldn't refute it. He was so enraged and embarrassed that he grabbed a hoe, intending to hit someone. My father quickly picked up a pickaxe to counter him. The village chief panicked and tried to intervene, while I was calculating how much longer it would take for the police to arrive. Just then, someone rushed into the house, frantic. It's bad, old Zhang, your son drowned. Uncle Zhang yelled. That brat Timmy is causing trouble again. He threw down the hoe and ran straight to the riverside. The village chief followed. My parents also ran out to see what was happening, leaving only me standing still. I covered my mouth with my hand, trying to suppress the immense joy in my heart. When I calmed down, I also went to the riverside. Mr. Wang from the village had a delivery order nearby. While digging taro, he saw someone floating on the river and quickly ran back to the village to call for help. When Timothy Zhang was pulled up, he was no longer breathing. Uncle Zhang couldn't believe it, repeatedly pressing on his son's chest. "Timmy, wake up quickly. Don't sleep. Dad will find you a wife. Wake up. You cold-blooded people. No one helped me save my son. I'll kill all of you." As a father who had just lost his child, no matter how harsh his words, no one blamed him. They even tried to comfort him. Someone advised Uncle Zhang to grieve less, but he grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it at them. "Damn you, is your household registration book too thin?" The person endured it without arguing back. Everyone found Uncle Zhang pitiful. His wife had just miscarried, and his son had drowned. A white-haired person sending off a black-haired one was truly tragic. Only I felt that Timothy Zhang deserved to die. In my previous life, he barged into our house with a knife, ignoring our desperate pleas, and hacked all three of us to death. That pain was 10,000 times worse than drowning. Timothy Zhang was truly the most deserving of death. The more I thought, the angrier I became. I clenched my fists, veins popping out. My mother saw I looked unwell, subtly came over, patted my shoulder, and squeezed my hand to reassure me. In my mother's palm, I found a hair tie. At that moment, I almost burst into tears. Suddenly, my mother screamed, "Chloe, be careful." Immediately after, I was violently pushed away. A splash echoed, and my mother was pushed into the river by Aunt Zhang. "My son and daughter were both harmed by you people. Go down there and be buried with my children." Aunt Zhang even tried to push me in too, but I dodged her. My mother didn't know how to swim, and it was winter. The river water was bone-chilling. Staying in it for long would be life-threatening. My father didn't hesitate and jumped in to save my mother, but the water was too cold, and he was too weak to pull her up. I cried and screamed, begging the uncles by the river to help my parents. 2 or 3 people whom my mother had helped before took off their coats, ready to jump in, but Uncle and Aunt Zhang stopped them. Aunt Zhang pulled a small knife from her pocket and held it to her throat. "Anyone who dares to jump in, I'll kill myself, just watch." Uncle Zhang snatched the knife from his wife's hand and pointed the blade at everyone. "Who dares to save them? Your whole family will be buried with my son." No one dared to move anymore. Even the village chief, who was here earlier, had disappeared. My village once had land disputes with the neighboring village. The 2 villages used to fight. Uncle Zhang was the strongest fighter in our village. Dad said he fought like a leopard, incredibly fierce, and no one dared to touch him. Just like now, no one dared to cause trouble with him to save people. No matter how much I cried and pleaded, it was useless. I only hated that I couldn't swim. Looking at my parents, about to sink, I saw the pickaxe Mr. Wang had used for digging taro lying nearby. I ran over, picked up the pickaxe, and held it to Timothy Zhang's head. "Uncle Zhang, go down and save my parents or I'll smash your son's head." I wasn't bluffing. Uncle Zhang charged at me with the knife. "You little brat, go ahead and smash it if you dare. Do you think I'm scared of you?" I raised the pickaxe and brought it down hard. Aunt Zhang shrieked, "Don't harm my son. Zhang, quickly, get in the water." Hearing Aunt Zhang's scream, my hand froze and the pickaxe swerved to the side, kicking up dust. Uncle Zhang still wanted to rush forward and subdue me, but I raised the pickaxe again. Aunt Zhang shrieked desperately. "No!" Uncle Zhang gritted his teeth and said, "Fine, I'll go save them." But before he could jump in, the police arrived. 2 police officers didn't hesitate, jumped into the river, and rescued my parents. The incident was then taken to the police station. After many details, my parents ultimately chose to reconcile. Although I was helpless, I couldn't stop them. I could only respect my parents' decision. However, after my parents fell into the river, I realized that being reborn didn't mean I had a magic shield. There were still too many unexpected events beyond my control. Since I couldn't avoid the unknown, I had to completely avoid sources of danger. I told my parents to move to the city to live with me, but they had lived in the countryside for more than half their lives and didn't want to leave their hometown. I told my parents, "I agree to your reconciliation, but you must also promise to leave this village. You both saw what happened the day Mom fell into the river. Uncle and Aunt Zhang are truly insane. They're capable of anything." Even though everyone knows what happened to their family has nothing to do with ours, it's useless to reason with ruffians like them. The only way to be truly safe is to stay away. Under my persuasion, my parents finally agreed. After finishing the sugarcane harvest in the field, they would follow me to the city. Coincidentally, my work wasn't busy recently, so I took some time off, went back to the village to stay with my parents, and helped with the sugarcane cutting. There was another purpose. I wanted those who had harmed my parents to pay. In my previous life, during a business trip, I coincidentally saw the village chief and a woman coming out of a hotel. The woman was holding the chief's arm, and the two of them were laughing intimately. My first reaction was, even the village chief, famous for loving his wife, is having an affair. Men really can't be trusted. I wasn't someone who liked to meddle in other people's affairs, so at the time, I just treated it as a joke and forgot about it immediately. But now, thinking back, the village chief sided with Uncle Zhang at our house that day. It was very likely because Uncle Zhang had something on him. I guessed Uncle Zhang knew about the chief's affair and used it to blackmail him. The village chief's wife, Zhang, came from a very powerful family. He wouldn't dare disregard the help from his in-laws. If the village chief helped evil, then I would expose everything. I hired someone to follow the village chief and track how often he went to hotels with his mistress. They met once a week, irregularly, frequenting hotels both in and out of the county. I sent the secretly recorded evidence of the affair to Zhang, along with the hotel locations. I heard that Zhang catching them red-handed was spectacular. She brought her siblings to the hotel, and each of them landed a few punches, leaving the village chief's face bruised and 2 teeth knocked out. His mistress didn't fare much better. Her hair was pulled out, her face scratched badly, and the entire process was recorded. After dealing with the village chief, I spent money to spread rumors that Uncle Zhang had once boasted while drunk about holding the village chief's secret. The village chief was already suspicious by nature. Upon hearing this, his eyes burned with rage, and he let the 2 dogs fight it out. This way, Uncle Zhang would no longer have the energy to cause trouble for my family. Indeed, not long after, the village chief was kicked out of his house by his wife. He angrily brought a bottle of liquor to Uncle Zhang's house. Just a few minutes later, Uncle Zhang's house was filled with desperate screams. Uncle Zhang had his leg broken by the village chief. After Aunt Zhang's miscarriage and Uncle Zhang preventing people from saving my parents, the Zhang family's reputation in the village deteriorated further. Everyone avoided them like the plague. Tomorrow, our family would also move to the city. As my mother was packing, Aunt Snow dropped by to visit. Hearing that we were about to move, Aunt Snow held my mother's hand, reluctant to let go. She said, if it weren't for those brazen Zhang and his wife demanding money, the village wouldn't be in such chaos, and you wouldn't be forced to leave. What? That fool dares to dream of marrying our Chloe? He should look in a mirror. Truly a toad wanting to eat swan meat. Now they're doing all sorts of evil deeds, they deserve the retribution. It's what they deserve to have their line cut off. Chloe's mother, remember to come back and visit me in the village later. My mother and Aunt Snow talked and wiped away tears. That night before going to bed, my mother sadly told me, I still have feelings for the village, I really don't want to leave. Little did I know, the next morning my mother received a painful slap in the face. Early the next morning, as soon as I woke up, I heard urgent knocking on the door. Opening it, I saw Aunt Zhang pushing Uncle Zhang in a wheelchair. They stood right in front of our house, shouting loudly, "Well done, Liam Lee. If I hadn't heard Aunt Snow say you people were going to the city, I wouldn't have known you were planning to escape. After destroying our family, you think you can just run away? No chance." What did she say? Aunt Snow told Aunt Zhang. My mother's face darkened as if she had eaten something foul. My parents were about to argue with Aunt Zhang's family. I pulled them back and stepped forward, asking coldly, Aunt Zhang, tell me, how exactly did my family harm yours? Aunt Zhang blamed all her family's misfortunes on ours and demanded we compensate them for their losses. The amount, previously 200,000 yuan, doubled to 400,000 yuan. I was about to retort when Aunt Snow and several other villagers arrived. Aunt Snow's first words stunned me. Oh my goodness, Chloe, how can you speak to Aunt Zhang like that? You even studied for a master's degree, how much have you read? I smiled and asked Aunt Snow, so how do you think I should speak? Aunt Snow said, of course, you should agree to Aunt Zhang's demands. They just lost a child and Uncle Zhang's leg is broken. Life is very difficult for them. Your family should help as much as you can. The villagers chimed in one after another. Villager A, if your family hadn't suddenly stopped cutting sugarcane that day, Aunt Zhang wouldn't have miscarried. None of the subsequent events would have happened. Ultimately, it's all your family's fault. Villager B, People should have a conscience, otherwise they'll face retribution later. Your family should compensate the Zhang family with 400,000. Villager C. Anyway, your family only has one daughter. You don't need to save so much money, unlike my family with sons who have to spend on all sorts of things. Aunt Snow even added, I heard your family is moving to the city to buy a house, so you should transfer the ownership of your village house to Aunt Zhang's family. It was then that I realized Aunt Snow was overtly jealous. No wonder when my mother told her last night that we were planning to buy a house in the city, her face turned pale. It's true that nowadays people fear your poverty but resent your wealth. Seeing people on her side, Aunt Zhang straightened her back, and even Uncle Zhang painfully tried to stretch out his broken leg. I looked at Aunt Snow and the others, smiling. If you all have such compassionate hearts, then this money should be paid by you. Each family would only contribute 100,000. After all, if you have sons, you should accumulate some good karma to hopefully marry off your daughters-in-law. The villagers immediately protested. Why should we pay? My family doesn't have that kind of money. I have money, but I don't need to lie for a few $100. It turned out these people were hired by Aunt Zhang to create public pressure. I couldn't be bothered to argue with them anymore, so I opened the indoor surveillance camera footage, showing the part where Aunt Snow said, the Zhang family's line will be cut off completely. Seeing the situation turn sour, Aunt Snow immediately retreated. Aunt Zhang rushed forward and slapped Aunt Snow twice. You adulterous woman, you dare to say our family will have no descendants? Your family is the one with an empty household registration book. Aunt Snow didn't hold back, kicking Aunt Zhang twice. The two women grabbed each other's hair and fought fiercely. My mother saw them fighting so violently and feared something bad would happen in front of our house, so she wanted to intervene. But I pulled her back. It's more entertaining to watch right now, Mom. Unexpectedly, Aunt Snow gave me a surprise gift. Unable to beat Aunt Zhang, Aunt Snow spat in her face, then, seizing the moment of disgust, pinned her to the ground and cursed. You cheap woman, you say I'm having an affair, but how noble are you? If you hadn't been busy fooling around with strange men years ago, your son wouldn't have had such a high fever that it damaged his brain and turned him into a fool. Aunt Snow's words stunned everyone, especially Uncle Zhang. His face turned purple, his eyes spitting fire, and he gritted his teeth, asking Aunt Zhang if it was true. Aunt Zhang dared not admit it, repeatedly shaking her head in denial. Aunt Snow screamed, If you're so brave, call Charlie Joe from the neighboring village to confront me. It turned out that years ago, Aunt Zhang had an affair with Charlie Joe, the ringleader of the neighboring village, while Uncle Zhang was the bully of their own village. The two men had fought many battles, each time getting beaten black and blue. After Timothy Zhang became simple-minded, Uncle Zhang's family had no more children because in one of those fights, Charlie Joe had kicked Uncle Zhang in a sensitive area, rendering him infertile. So they were love rivals. Now, this was interesting. Knowing he had been cuckolded, and his only son became simple-minded because of his wife's infidelity. Uncle Zhang, ignoring his pain, forced himself to stand up and delivered a resounding slap to Aunt Zhang. You vile woman, you dared to betray me. Timmy was so well-behaved, yet you turned him into a fool and cut off my family's lineage. I want you to pay for Timmy's life. Looking at Uncle Zhang's ferocious expression, if he hadn't been injured, he would have surely beaten Aunt Zhang to death. Aunt Zhang could only cry and beg for forgiveness, enduring the beating and scolding. This crazy couple turned into bitter enemies in front of everyone, but they had lived together for so many years. Even if love was gone, there was still some sentiment. After arguing for a while, Uncle Zhang embraced Aunt Zhang, choking back tears. Let it go. What's done is done. It's useless to dwell on it now. Let's go home. Let it go? How can I let it go? I paid someone to find evidence. Aunt Zhang had been to a hotel with Charlie Joe, and I sent the anonymous evidence to Uncle Zhang. It must be said that Uncle Zhang was truly a magnanimous man. Despite being thoroughly cuckolded, he remained calm. No matter how much evidence I sent, Uncle and Aunt Zhang acted as if nothing had happened, as close as before. I deliberated for a while and then came to a realization. In my previous life, this was indeed the greatest danger. Timothy Zhang had been dealt with, and our family had moved to the city smoothly. Uncle and Aunt Zhang no longer came to cause trouble, so I didn't need to keep an eye on them all day. Living this life again, I couldn't continue to waste my time on shameless people. Later, I realized one thing. If you don't pull out weeds by the root, the consequences can be disastrous. A colleague wanted to set me up on a blind date. The person was a police officer. Perhaps because of my tragic previous life, I was originally very averse to blind dates, but this time I wanted to try meeting him. I often wondered if Timothy Zhang had rushed into our house with a knife in the past and I had managed to call the police in time, could we have avoided that tragedy? With that thought, I went to meet my blind date. As expected, we made a rather good impression on each other and decided to continue getting to know each other. That day, after a walk with my blind date, I found the door to my house open. My mother wasn't home. My father had just gone to another province to attend a comrade-in-arms son's wedding. I immediately had a bad feeling. Sure enough, I received a call from Aunt Zhang, telling me to immediately return to the village. She also warned me not to call the police, or she would die with my mother. What a failure. Even though Timothy Zhang was gone, and our city address had changed, in this life I still couldn't escape that suffocating, life-threatening feeling. Without time to think, I rushed back to the village. As soon as I entered the house, I saw my mother knocked out on the floor, her hands and feet tightly bound. Aunt Zhang stood beside her, holding a kitchen knife. Seeing me return, she immediately held the knife to my mother's throat, asking if I had called the police. After confirming I hadn't, she lowered the knife, looking at me with hatred. I asked, "Aunt Zhang, what do you want?" She gave a cold laugh. "Chloe Lee, you've been reborn, haven't you? You must have been reborn a long time ago. Otherwise, in the previous life, your entire family would be dead by now. Now it's my family that's shattered. You must be happy, right? But you didn't expect this, did you? I was also reborn at the most crucial moment. I want you to pay for my son's life." Aunt Zhang was extremely agitated. I didn't dare provoke her, only pretending to be foolish to buy time. I said, "Aunt Zhang, what are you talking about? I don't understand anything." Suddenly, I saw blood on her clothes. I wanted to rush over to check on my mother, but Aunt Zhang blocked me with the knife. I asked, "What did you do to my mother? If anything happens to her, I won't spare you or Uncle Zhang." Aunt Zhang laughed maniacally. "That's not your mother's blood. It's that scoundrel Zhang Zhongli's blood." So that's it. After discovering his son's simple-mindedness was due to his wife's affair, Uncle Zhang harbored resentment, but at the time, his leg was broken and he needed care, so he suppressed his anger. Once his leg healed, he began to abuse Aunt Zhang. Hearing her account, I was surprised. It turned out Uncle Zhang had seen all the photos of her affair that I had sent anonymously. He had suppressed his rage, waiting for the day of revenge. This morning, that bastard beat me. I couldn't take it anymore, so I fought back. He then beat me almost to death. I couldn't bear it, so I grabbed a knife and slashed him a few times. He stopped breathing. "Ha ha ha." Seeing my surprise, Aunt Zhang continued, "Don't be surprised. I know I can't escape, but with you and your mother dying with me, I'll die content. It's all your fault, Chloe Lee. If your family had cut sugarcane on time, at most I would have just lost money. Now I've lost my life too. So you're reborn. You'll still die by my hand, just like in the previous life." Aunt Zhang held the knife and stepped towards my mother, pretending she was about to strike. "Drink this cup of pesticide on the table, or I'll cut her right now." I didn't pick up the cup of pesticide, but took a step closer to her. "Aunt Zhang, look, your hands are trembling. You're actually very scared, aren't you? I know you just want money, otherwise you wouldn't have waited for me to come back. You know you can't get away with murder, so you're holding my mother hostage for money. I guess you plan to use that money to compensate your son. The son you had before marrying Uncle Zhang, who was left behind in your hometown. Am I right?" Aunt Zhang's face was filled with horror. She couldn't believe I knew that secret. There's no such thing as an airtight wall in this world. With a little money to hire someone to investigate in the village, everything became clear. Once a person has a weakness, it's easy for others to get a hold of them. But Aunt Zhang, having lived 2 lives, wasn't so easily manipulated. It's true that earlier I wanted money, but now I've changed my mind. I don't need money anymore. I want your lives. Chloe Lee, don't think a few words will scare me. Drink the pesticide quickly, or I'll really cut her. Aunt Zhang was like a balloon about to burst, ready to go insane at any moment. I picked up the cup of pesticide on the table and said regretfully, "I heard he works at the hospital, has a girlfriend, and is about to get married. He's truly pitiful. He grew up without a mother's love, had to rely on himself to achieve everything, and then had it all destroyed by his own irresponsible mother. Aunt Zhang, I know you still want money. On my way back, I already prepared 400,000 yuan, which I can transfer at any time. Do you really not want to use that money to compensate your son?" Aunt Zhang began to waver. In truth, her intention to kill was merely a pretense. Her goal from beginning to end was still money. Just as Aunt Zhang hesitated for a few seconds, I seized the opportunity to cough, signaling. A figure shot like lightning, knocking Aunt Zhang to the ground. The knife fell to the side. There was no longer any threat. It was all over. I looked down at Aunt Zhang, who was handcuffed, and flashed a victorious smile. Aunt Zhang, I forgot to tell you, I didn't call the police, but my blind date is a police officer. I've told him everything. Aunt Zhang screamed unwillingly, "Arrest her. She's the one who was reborn. She destroyed my family. She's the killer. Arrest her." The police officer's gaze at me was complex. I avoided his eyes and silently made a decision in my heart. After my mother regained consciousness, we went to the police station to cooperate with the investigation. Aunt Zhang's crimes were clear. She was about to be sent to prison. Uncle Zhang was left barely clinging to life after her attack. Even if he survived, he would be crippled, spending the rest of his days bedridden. The hatred that spanned 2 lifetimes was finally repaid. I told the police officer, my blind date, that we weren't a good match and shouldn't see each other again. He was a good person, truly, but I carried a heavy burden in my heart and couldn't be with someone so upright. My mother, knowing about it, hugged me and comforted me. "My good daughter, everyone knows Timothy Zhang fell into the water by himself. As for him going to the riverside to pick up a hair tie, only you and I know that. I'll bear this burden with you. Don't carry this weight in your heart anymore. Bad people who do wrong must pay the price." Our family never actively harmed anyone, but we also can't let others easily harm us. My mother's words enlightened me. Timothy Zhang was simple-minded but especially liked playing by the river. Who knew? I had once given him a hair tie and said, "I live under the river. If you miss your wife, come to the river to find me." What bothered me was that after I rejected him, the police officer began pursuing me relentlessly. I told him, "We're really not compatible." He asked, "So what good qualities do you see in me? Can I change?" I replied, "You don't need to change anything, just be yourself." Tomorrow I'll have to research the most effective way to turn down a blind date.